Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Odd Topic podcast. We have a super cool episode for you guys today, and for ourselves. I'm quite excited for this topic.
Yeah, something a bit different, but yeah.
Quite a bit different, yeah. So in the onset of this show, we kind of wanted to delve into the topics that we enjoy. Not so much always just kind of trying to feed out random topics just for the sake of content, but more about stuff that we're quite passionate about.
Yeah.
And in that vein, I would like to talk about this week, horror and horror in general. It's such a amazing genre for me. I've grown up with horror. I love all things horror. It stems from when I was a young kid. It's got tie-ins with all the paranormal stuff I enjoy as well. It's been with me since I was born. That almost sounds kind of creepy, doesn't it? It's like
I was Chucky.
I was born in the darkness.
The darkness molded me to what I am today.
But yeah, so that's the plan for this topic. I'm quite excited for it. Oh, by the way, I'm your host, Luke, and my co-host here is Brett.
Hey!
Probably should have led with that one. But yeah, so how do you feel about horror, Brett?
I love horror. I mean, I get that some people don't, and I get why, but I love it.
Yeah, it's just the best, man. It appeals to me to like a sense of emotion that I don't really get from any other thing. You know, I'm never really scared, and I'm not trying to be a tough guy. I mean, I get freaked out sometimes by stuff, but like when I'm watching movies or in my day-to-day life, I don't often feel that kind of visceral fear that I feel when I watch horror.
Exactly.
Although that being said, with enough horror, I've kind of like been a bit desensitized.
I kind of think you will. I mean, it's hard to kind of keep that adrenaline going.
100%.
It's never going to happen.
No, and it's kind of annoying, to be honest, because like now, like a movie that I think looks awesome and should be really scary, I'm just kind of blasé about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the topic of horror today, we're gonna stick to our sort of plan of how we do things. I'm gonna talk a bit about, first of all, my experiences with horror, and as well as the sort of evolution of horror in my eyes, anyway, through sort of the ages. And Brett, you're going to talk about?
I'm going to talk more about the science of horror and why it does what it does to us.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's going to be quite important to know. It's going to tie a lot into, well, what we're going to be talking about. So yeah, should I kick it away? You want to start?
Go for it.
All right. Well, it's going to be a bit of a conversation piece. This is sort of my upbringing with horror and how I got into it. I'm sure most people that are into horror have similar experiences. But basically, you know, as a kid, when I was young, it was in the time frame of your sort of teen thriller horror movies, your Friday the 13th and your...
That was probably like cult classics in a way,
yeah. Which is not, in fact, very far from my favorite genre of horror. But at the time, anyway, that was cool. But I was, at the young age, I was too afraid to watch horror movies.
Yeah.
My parents wouldn't let me, I remember having a fight over them letting me watch Jaws, which is not even horror.
Really? No ways.
They just knew it was going to give me nightmares. So I don't blame them, I suppose. If you're a parent, you don't want your kid waking up in the middle of the night.
But maybe that's why you enjoy them as much as you do. It's almost like a rebellious
I used to freak my dad out. Whenever I had a nightmare, I would like sneak up out of bed, brave the darkness, and then just go stand next to my parents while they're sleeping and just watch them. And like my dad would eventually wake up and get such a fright. He'd like almost want to like punch me. And maybe it's like years in the army or something, but he was never happy. He would always like, you see the white of his eyes. Like there's the devil above his bed, you know?
No one would be happy with that. Nobody.
I was a pretty creepy kid, I guess. But yeah, anyway, so I did watch a lot of scary cartoons and stuff. Well, I wouldn't say scary cartoons, but the cartoons like Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They always had that like one or two super creepy episodes.
Yeah.
I loved them. Dude.
Yeah.
I used to have like sleepovers with my friends, and they couldn't watch these episodes, and I was just like, no, keep watching. Anyway, so yeah, the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack was cool. That I watched. I was a bit of an older teenager when that came out on Cartoon Network. But what was cool about that? By the way, I think it was also done by Pendleton Ward, who I think had a say in a few episodes of Adventure Time as well.
Oh, hectic. Okay.
Emphasize on think. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a connection there. Anyway, and it was very, very creepy stuff. Like how was that a kid's show? There's a lot of sort of realistic imagery, and there's this creepy cat that would flash on the screen and all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how half of those things were actually allowed for kids.
That, to me, it baffled my mind. My youngest stepbrother would get super freaked out by the show, and I'd force him to watch it with me because I loved it. Great older brother.
Yeah, fantastic.
Anyway, so then growing up a bit, I ventured on to 4chan. I used to go into the paranormal board X.
Okay.
Which is, I think it's kind of 4chan everyone probably knows, but it's like a more edgier version of Reddit.
Yeah, it seems to not be at the frontmost as it used to be.
No. 4chan is definitely going down in the years.
Yeah.
I think the appeal of it was that it was like an anonymous image board, whereas
Correct.
Reddit, you still have an account to post and stuff.
Yeah.
4chan, you could just don't have to have anything.
And
No
it's a
one knows
little
who
bit
the hell
being
you
like overloaded with not those 4chan regulars, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. There's anyway, the paranormal board X is like a work safe board.
Okay.
So it's not got any of the creepy bad stuff you hear on the media about 4chan.
Yeah.
But so there was like a lot of paranormal like experiences people have. They posted up there, and I'd read them, and I really, really enjoyed that. And that's then what got me into creepypastas.
Ooh, now that freaks the hell out of me.
I love creepypastas.
So great.
Man. But then there was always the element of like, okay, well, these creepypastas are never real. I don't.
I think that the fact that they portrayed that realness made them so much better.
100%.
But everyone in the back of their mind is like, this is not real.
Yeah. But like you hang on to the hope. Maybe it is.
Explain the style of body horror.
I don't know if you ever watched the movie The Thing.
Yes,
it's quite an old movie. Yeah. So
they did redo it. I actually watched the
like there's that scene where I think the decapitated head then suddenly grows little legs out of it. So like that kind of thing is body horror.
Okay. I know what that is.
As opposed to like your slasher murderer chasing you.
Correct.
Or
where it's an actual like.
Yeah. So Junji Ito is a master of that. A lot of his works have like weird like sort of misshapen bodies coming at you, or like yourself slowly transforming to something different. And so a lot of his work, one of his more famous ones is the Amigara Fault. I'm not going to go into that. I mean, there's a lot of just YouTube it or something. But basically these people discover, by people I mean that the world discovers this cliffside which has body-shaped holes.
Oh, hectic.
Which go through the cliff. Like imagine a cookie cutter of like a person.
Yeah.
It's like that in a cliff.
Straight through the cliff so you can see the other side.
Yeah.
Okay.
And well, it's so far you can't actually see the other side. But and people start like having these weird reactions when they find holes that are like shaped just like them.
Oh.
And they have this compulsion to go into these holes to like fit their body into it's very trypophobia. It's like
but
they
claustrophobia kind of thing.
They want to go into it's like they feel they're drawn to it, like this. It's shaped for me. I have to go in here, and it's kind of weird because like I mean I think I'd feel like that too. It's like I need to go into this. I belong in this.
I need to experience this.
So anyway, then these people do go in. And they try not to, and they end up going in, whatever. Then eventually, like, they find the other side. So, like, the other explorers or whatever will come to the other, like, walk around the mountain.
Yeah.
Find out, it's actually just natural formations, and it just happens to be like this. And everyone's a bit delusional that they think that they can fit through here. But throughout moving through, these guys are trying to walk through the hole, like, inch by inch, because you can't really move. But the shape of the holes is like going all weird and crack-like and stuff.
Yeah.
So by the time these guys reach the end of the hole, their bodies are all like contorted and stiff, and it's creepy. And the guy like runs at them out the hole.
Oh.
It's messed. It's so good though.
I always wonder how that gets into a guy like his mind. How that idea. I remember it was quite a while. Okay, not a while ago. I mean, maybe a year or two ago. I think you and I were talking. I think you were reading a manga or whatever, and I can't remember the exact story, but it was about that guy that lived in the chair.
That's Junji Ito, yeah.
Yeah. So that, like, after you explained that to me and you showed me that, like, it baffled my mind that a guy could think of that. And it interests the hell out of me on, like, that.
It's very strange.
It's very strange, but it almost, like, lists a few, like, kind of emotions and thoughts in anyone because it's like, you never think of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing of horror, is it's bringing out things you've never thought of
Yeah.
into a realistic point of view, and you're like, whoa, that's
Yeah,
hectic.
like what if this actually happened?
Exactly.
You know, like none of this stuff is too far out there. It's this.
It's
kinda
just
plausible.
within like the realm of possibility that you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Check
And
your
I
chairs.
mean, it's an art form, really.
It is,
How do
100%.
you come up with this kind of stuff? Like you have to be so in tune with human nature as well to identify
Correct.
what kind of makes a person scared. But I suppose you'll go more into that. Also, along with Junji Ito is another guy called Kazuo Umezu.
Yeah.
Umezu. I butchered that. But I think he came before Junji Ito. In fact, I'm pretty sure he did, because Junji Ito references him a lot as one of his kind of people that he looked up to when he was doing it. His
Mentors
work,
kind of thing.
yeah, his work is oddly, I find in most cases situated like a lot around kids, especially like a young boy is pretty much the protagonist most times.
Okay.
I think Shu is the name of his one that he uses a lot. Anyway, he has a manga called The Drifting Classroom,
Okay.
which is super creepy as well. It's essentially a school that gets transported through sort of space and time
Yeah.
into this weird alien kind of landscape,
Ooh.
and these kids try to survive. And it's very what's the book we all read at school when the kids on an island and they end up fighting each other?
The Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. It was very Lord of the Flies-esque.
Okay. Ooh, I love Lord of the Flies.
So that's worth a read as well. If I haven't lost anyone in my tangent here about manga. But yeah, so I think the one horror game I did kind of get through was Dead Space, the first one.
Okay.
And that was quite scary, but I powered through it because I love like the concept of like deep space sci-fi.
Yeah. I love deep space sci-fi, but it doesn't freak me out nearly as much as kind of real world horrors, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I can do Alien vs Predator, the original Alien, no
Yeah.
problem. Like it freaks me out, but it's not that unbearable like
Yeah.
horror feeling, because to me it's not as realistic.
Like it's so implausible.
Exactly, exactly.
Maybe that's why it's one of the few ones I could play through.
Maybe, yeah, exactly.
Speaking of weird sci-fi alien stuff, the Alien franchise, especially like the newer ones and Prometheus,
Yes.
how fucking good.
Yeah.
Is it just me? Because I see a lot of people criticizing Prometheus and stuff on the internet, and I thought it was amazing.
I enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. But I guess everyone's got different opinions, and people might think I've got no taste now for liking Prometheus. But I really thought it was good, especially with how it tied into Aliens overall.
I think that's why people didn't enjoy it and give it as much credit as it deserved. Like, because people knew that it belonged to the Alien franchise,
Yeah.
and that is quite something to live up to.
I mean, it was also quite dumb that I couldn't tell because it was so similar with
Yeah,
like the
it was
android and the
quite-
whatever.
We'll let you pass on this one.
Sometimes I'm dumb.
We'll forgive you, Luke.
Yeah, so anyway, so here I am now, basically after having that journey, and I've watched most things, I'd say, most modern things, and read most things, so I eagerly await any new thing that comes out.
Especially on Netflix.
Yeah, which is actually a beautiful segue into what I want to talk about in terms of what I just watched, which is the movie 8,
Ooh.
a South African horror story.
One of the very few South African horror stories.
And it's super fitting. I mean, is it the only one?
No, they apparently, one I saw a little while ago, it was called Rage.
Rage.
It's basically like, now in South Africa, there's a thing called Rage. It's massive with the students.
Oh, like Pet Rage.
Like Pet Rage, yeah.
Okay.
So students at the end of the year, for Americans, they have the summer holidays. We have December holidays, which is our summer.
It's like our spring break, I'd say.
Our spring break. It's
Yeah.
called Rage. So there was a movie released a couple of years ago, and it was called Rage, and it's basically about this group of kids that go to their rage, and they somehow land up in a house where they're staying and that they've rented. That is, I don't know if it's possessed or what it is, but they actually form part of this ritual, and they become the sacrifice in the ritual.
Okay.
I haven't watched it. Apparently,
I didn't even hear about it, so I'm very interested
The
now.
problem is it was South African directed. 8 wasn't South African directed. 8 was directed, I don't know who directed, but I know
I've
it's
got
not.
it here, don't worry.
Luke will tell us soon. But yeah, 8 does have, okay, actually, talk about 8. You can fill everything in.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, so South African horror. It also has another name, by the way.
Really?
The Soul Collector. That's actually how it's more known overseas. When I tried to research this movie after the fact, typing in 8 didn't get me very many hits. It was always 8 The Soul Collector, or if it happened The Soul Collector, a lot more came up.
Really?
So I'm not sure why it's like that, because on our Netflix it's definitely 8.
And everywhere I've searched it has been 8, but I haven't searched
But
it
I
as
think
much.
it might have actually been based on a book, or is that wrong?
I don't know. I don't think so.
The director wrote and directed this, so probably he
Yes.
means he wrote the script for it.
Quite possible,
So I don't
yeah.
think it's a book.
It's very much South African folklore.
So maybe there's a folklore about the Soul Collector.
Correct, yeah. It's like a bad omen. It's the Xhosa tradition of a bad omen.
Yeah.
So their superstition and all that revolves around the Tokolosh. It is almost like that thing on your shoulder.
Okay.
Yeah. So in their kind of like mythology,
They
and all
took
that,
it in a very literal sense, though.
100%.
I mean, they put in their culture, they raised their beds on bricks and stuff.
2 bricks and a
because-
tiki ha,
Yeah, because the Tokolosh is too short, so they
Correct.
wouldn't be able to jump
Yeah.
on their beds. Yeah.
and also small windows. So one thing you'll see is small windows, and all the beds will be on bricks. So their understanding is, or their superstition is, you have to be 2 bricks and a tiki ha, and they won't get on your bed. Tokolosh gets you.
Define a
when you're sleeping.
tiki.
So back in the day, a 10-cent piece was called a tiki,
Okay.
or 10 cent or 20 cent. I can't remember.
Is that worldwide or just South Africa?
No, just South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was known as a tiki. My dad always talks about being at school, and he could afford on like one tiki, he could get
I've
an
heard
ice
that one
cream
too,
and a haircut or whatever.
Ice cream and a haircut. Who's getting those simultaneously?
You gotta eat something when you're getting a haircut, man. Come on.
Now I just sit there awkwardly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so 8. I enjoyed it quite a lot. I wouldn't say it was ultra fantastic.
Okay.
I wanted it. Okay. How do I phrase this? It beat my expectations.
All right. That's a good.
But I
thing.
also wanted it to be better. So,
Okay.
like, I was expecting this amount. I wished it was this amount, and it kind of fell in between.
Which is not bad for.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely
I mean,
not.
that's
Especially if
good.
it's a South African movie, because, well, even though it wasn't directed by South African, but
Still mostly South African actors. Yeah.
So, like, South African movies in general aren't the greatest, let's say,
No.
when it comes to acting and all that stuff. And let me say, for this movie, acting was superb.
That's great.
It was really, really good.
Yeah.
The only actress who maybe had a bit of fault was the young girl, but she's a child actor. And child actors are usually hit or miss.
Correct.
And she actually wasn't bad. I think that maybe I picked it up more because I get the accent. But
Okay.
if you're not from this country, I don't think you'll even notice that there's a problem with it. She seemed a little bit robotic.
Okay.
But I'm not trying to shit on this little girl, because she did a great job.
Nice. Okay.
It was just, it's also it's a bit of an odd one. So anyway, I'm not going to spoil the movie or anything, but it's about this dude named Lazarus. Well, not really about him, but he's kind of the central figure, and they've adopted the main dude's sister's daughter, because her parents died, so they adopted her.
Oh, so she isn't their child.
She's not their child. She's an uncle and
Oh.
auntie.
Okay.
And that's not a spoiler. That's quite apparent from the beginning. And she's having a real tough time with her parents' death, and she feels like she doesn't really belong, because her auntie is not the warmest person.
Not really that mother figure that you kind of need.
Yeah, and she always shits on the dad, and it's the uncle. Anyway, so this other guy named Lazarus kind of used to apparently work for the owner of the farm, the guy's dad, and now he kind of wants to help out and stuff, and he wheels his way into the family. And I don't want to spoil anything else about it, really, but he's played by Chamono Sebe. Brett, you'll say it better than me. Pronounce that word, man.
Wait. Yeah, Chamono Sebe.
Oh, I nailed it.
Yeah, job, man.
Okay, so he played Lazarus, and fantastic actor. Really, he just nailed every aspect of it. I was so chuffed. I think this guy could go so far as an actor. I really do. Dude, he pulled off like the perfect South African wanderer, you know?
Is he in anything else?
I don't know.
I think maybe just this part was made for him.
Yeah. Anyway, and it starts to get a bit trippy towards the end. There's a bit of a sort of ethereal section of it, shall I say. But I enjoyed it. It was a bit long. The runtime, I think, was like an hour 45, which doesn't seem that bad. But there are parts that just did drag on a little bit. That was my main detractor. They could have summarized a few things.
I mean, we are in the era now of longer movies.
Yeah.
We kind of hitting that era of 2 hours. I mean, if you look at The Irishman, I mean, it's ridiculous, like a 2.5 hour movie. So yeah, movies are getting there. If you're gonna be that long, have a reason for it. Don't have those lingering moments.
Yeah, there's a bit of waffling going on here. Like it wasn't that necessary. And there was a few things in the movie. This might have been me, not the movie, but some stuff I didn't quite grab. I had to like re-look at it and try to think about it a bit more afterwards and be like, what the hell were they trying to get at with this point?
Okay.
But you'll see. You must watch it. I highly recommend you watch it. And then you told me you just watched Tall Grass.
I have just watched Tall Grass.
So I'll talk a bit about that now.
I would like to. So, okay, I am a fan of Stephen King. I don't read his books, but I like how his mind works.
I've read Misery.
I watch his movies.
The Shining, maybe.
Oh, The Shining, yeah. That's one of his first feature film releases. He didn't like it, by the way. He'd never liked
the movie
how the
film was there.
Yeah, surprising. So I'm a big fan of him and kind of how his mind works and all that. I don't know how I feel about this movie. I don't know how I feel about it. So I watched it yesterday, and it was one of those movies where you kind of watch it, and the more you watch it, it kind of unravels itself a bit more. And I must say that is kind of what I love about like the psychological horror genre. Is the whole time you're almost on the edge of your seat because you want to know what happens next.
Yeah.
What I didn't like about it was the fact that the ending almost gave you an unfinished.
Yeah.
It finished, but it never was a concise completion.
But wasn't that kind of the point? It's almost like a never-ending.
Correct. And I had to do a little bit of searching to figure out what the hell was actually going on.
Oh yeah, me too.
I understood a few things. My girlfriend hated it.
Really?
Did not like it whatsoever.
It wasn't my favorite.
Was super angry.
Yeah.
Like, even to this point now, she is so angry that we watched this movie. And it's because it never gave, I'm assuming, her the finish that she wanted.
Yeah.
So I had to do a bit of searching to figure out. And for those that haven't watched it, take it with a pinch of salt. But you have to read a little bit to find out what it's about. And what
wasn't it based on? It was based on like a very short story, wasn't it? Like a really small novel. This was not one of his massive
No,
books.
not at all. Yeah. And I think that's why it probably shouldn't have been put into a movie.
Yeah.
Because
maybe like a short 40-minute episode kind of thing.
Yeah. They spend a little bit too much time running around in the grass. I enjoy movies like this where that whole twist, and I guess that's why I like M. Night Shyamalan and stuff like that. Where you're kind of in a frame of mind, but it continuously changes. So basically what I've kind of figured out is it's almost like based around that church.
Yeah.
And the grass is almost like the purgatory stage.
Yes.
Where you almost have to kind of, the rock in the middle judges you for your sins. And only once you either repent or you kind of overcome that, does it let you through. But it's not apparent in the movie.
Yeah.
The movie just throws you so many curveballs and so many like visual kind of anomalies that you don't know what to kind of expect.
Yeah.
The acting was okay. The kid, I must say, he did a great job. Tobin, I don't know what his name is in real life. He did a fantastic job, I thought. I think each actor kind of brought their own kind of. I didn't enjoy her. I forgot what her name is. Becky. I didn't enjoy her.
Damn, Becky.
Damn, Becky. Yeah. I kind of felt that. Okay, she did well, but out of all of them, she wasn't the most. But I think maybe that was just what her character was like. I can't really fault her. I think it's more just the character of Becky was a little bit, I don't know, it wasn't as polished as I would have hoped it would have been. Especially for someone in her state and all that.
It felt like a bit of a rush movie, eh?
It was. And it was one of those movies that was a little bit too metaphorical for its own good.
Yeah.
They kind of took things a little bit extreme.
But I wonder how far it deviates from the book.
I don't know. I think it felt rushed because they had to make a feature film out of a short novel.
Could be.
Yeah. But I think everyone has a different aspect on this. It is very mixed feelings online as well.
Yeah. I found it creepy because like, wasn't it like a person that sort of forms in the out of the grass?
The grass people, yeah. Like basically like they're humanoid, but they have grass faces.
That was creepy. Also, I don't know, have you heard of H.P. Lovecraft before?
I have.
So I still have not read a single book. I really want to. He's obviously the most famous thing, Cthulhu, or Cthulhu, or however you pronounce it. That's his most famous works, but there's a few movies based on his stuff as well. I actually recently watched, it's an oldish movie, I think it was called Dagon.
Okay.
And it's basically like people who live in the water, like this whole kind of weird sort of fisherman village town that basically they're all summoning this underwater god figure. He's the master of what's called cosmic horror.
Okay.
Which is, so again, to kind of compare to like body horror, completely different thing. The cosmic horror is kind of the fear of these just enormous entities and unknown, like the unknown. So I'm going to go on a bit about here the sort of evolution of horror. So what I've seen throughout the years and stuff. There was the period of time, as we mentioned before, where like teen slashers were like all the rage, which was quite cool, I guess. It was like your Scream, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think even Chucky falls in here.
Yeah, Chucky's definitely a slasher.
Which Chucky freaked me out, dude. I hate dolls.
My
wife Debbie has a collection of porcelain dolls in the room behind me, and it freaks me out. I don't know why she brought these into my house. Sorry, our house. But they get shoved into her room, and I never want to go in that room. It is. She's actually out of town at the moment. It's a very good time to maybe take my cricket bat and just beat the hell out of these porcelain dolls.
You will not live to see the end of that.
Yes, but I will live another night, Brett. Try living in this empty ass house.
It's not empty, Luke. You have lots of people. You.
Oh, God. My dogs are sleeping in the room with me tonight. But I think the first kind of bunch of horror was... I wouldn't say it was teens, slashers and stuff. That came a bit later. I think a lot of it was sort of like monsters. That was a big thing. Your Godzilla, your King Kong, and your Dracula, your that sort of thing. That was definitely the first couple horror movies.
Dracula was one of the first, and what I love about the Dracula story was they filmed Dracula in 2 languages at the same time. They did the English during the day and the Spanish at night.
Oh, that's cool.
And for no reason other than the fact of they used the same actors and they just wanted to do both. The Spanish one turned out so much freakier because it was done at night. And it was by complete chance. Yeah. And it's my most favorite story of like a horror becoming... exactly. And it was by pure chance.
That's very cool. I like Dracula. I don't like some of the modern day vampire stuff.
No.
Twilight inspired this kind of vampire craze, and
Twilight almost like glorified vampires in a way.
I mean, Twilight's obviously by no means a horror movie, but it did kind of put a breath of shall we say stale air into the vampire series. But anyway, I'll get into that a bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, because I suppose the genre is a bit played out, but I do think we're going to see a massive resurgence in these movies. We have a bit already. There's been quite a few sort of Frankenstein recreations, which have done quite well, I think. And I mean, we still see a King Kong and a new Godzilla every now and then. But I don't think this genre is dead yet, shall I say? Like the Swamp Thing and
no, definitely not dead.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is another time of teen slashers. There were sort of movies that stood out a bit, like The Thing that I mentioned, which were quite body horror and quite different for the time. It really stood out. I didn't even know about these things until way after the fact because they weren't mainstream.
No.
The mainstream horror was your Scream, Friday the 13th. Then
they were horror that was basically like almost feature films in a way.
Yeah. And then sort of after the teen slashers, there was this rising popularity of these kind of gory escape room kind of movies.
Ooh, which I love.
Like your Saw.
Yes.
And
Escape Room.
Yeah, Escape Room. The Cube. Which, they're quite cool. I wouldn't say they're the greatest in terms of production quality and stuff, but I did enjoy the movies. And Saw just took off there.
Saw was massive. I mean,
there's like 6 movies or something
stupid.
Yeah,
and a spin-off called Jigsaw. Yeah. It's ridiculous. But what they got right was they kind of play on people's emotions in terms of it's so plausible that could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, Saw and Hostel.
I mean, none of it was sci-fi stuff.
No,
This was like...
It was just...
survive.
Yeah, basically it was that psychological with a little bit of gore. I mean, Hostel, Saw, they're all in that same kind of ballpark.
Big time. And they also, like, around this time for me anyway, was, I don't know, Japan was ahead of the curve with all sorts of horror. They had The Ring, The Grudge, all this stuff coming out at the same time as our shitty Scream thrillers. I suppose maybe a bit later. Arguably, this stuff actually came out even earlier in Japan. The West only got it, I say the West, but South Africa as well, only got it way after the fact.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're still really cool. I like them quite a lot. And Japan in general has such a different take on horror. Japan loves body horror. Yeah. It's what they're into, from what I've seen anyway. But yeah, then there was, as I said, the surge about vampires. And then zombies came after vampires.
Yeah, Walking Dead.
Walking Dead inspired a lot of that. I loved zombies for a long while. And again, it's sort of the genre got played out a bit. And I think my favorite thing to come out of the whole zombie thing was like the kind of more light-hearted ones, like Zombieland.
Zombieland, 100%.
Which is fantastic. I actually just watched the second one.
A double tap, yeah.
Yeah. And what's it? Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, yeah, the Dawn of the Dead. Yeah.
It was also a great one. But yeah, and then sort of like now from that point onwards, we sort of entered the new, what I want to call the new age of horror, which is when, I suppose I just feel like that because it's maybe when I got more into horror, but sort of like now that CGI is a lot better and people, and like there's no more of these sort of typical tropes anymore. Everyone's trying different styles now.
Yeah. And
with the accessibility of movies, and I think Netflix playing a big part in that, there's a lot of really good stuff coming out. A lot of kind of baddish stuff as well, maybe, but a lot of good stuff. And the sort of the bad stuff is so like ironically bad that you want to watch it anyway.
Correct. But the good outweighs the bad.
Yeah. No, hands down. It's so different though. That's what I love about horror now. It's so different. Even your quote unquote mainstream horror is so different.
Yeah.
Everyone can be watching it, but it's so unique. Everything now is unique.
I think Get Out appealed to a different audience. Still a horror audience, but a different audience.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of memes that online of the Get Out things, like it did become big.
Yeah. But what's quite cool, and yeah, it's going to go into race a bit. I mean, Get Out's obviously hectic about race.
Yes.
And then his Jordan Peele's second movie, Us, was also, it's not, that one wasn't about racial tensions or anything at all, but that focused around a black family and the black lives. And it's quite cool because I'd say you don't see a lot of that in horror. It's always a typical white teenage girl is getting murdered.
Yes.
You know, so it's refreshing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like he's made a couple of statements, which I don't really agree with on him and why he casts the people that he casts and whatever, but I don't want to go into that now. But I do like his take on horror because I think he comes at it with a very unique approach and oftentimes handles topics that we might not even think of as white people.
Exactly.
But yeah, really good. So like the movies from sort of this age, I found are very, very ethereal. Everything's sort of psychological horror.
Which I love.
It's the best. So, I mean, example, Midsommar, if you watch that.
Sounds super familiar.
It might be on Netflix now, might not be, I'm not sure. But I did watch it and I loved it. I don't want to say anything about it because you need to watch it.
Okay.
Very similar to Hereditary, which is also another phenomenal movie. So creepy.
Oh, really?
So messed up creepy.
Is that also Netflix? Oh, man, I'm pretty
I don't know if these ones were. I might have seen them from...
I'm almost sure Hereditary is because they like it's been one of those movies where...
It might be now.
Maybe it is now.
Because I remember when they came out, I was hunting for these movies. So I couldn't find them. Because we in South Africa only get Netflix and then our local DSTV.
Correct, yeah.
Which is hot garbage. Sorry, DSTV. So Netflix owns the show here. There's no HBO. There's none of that stuff.
Nothing.
So if it's not on Netflix, we don't get it, you know. But yeah, I'll give that a watch. Anyway, so that's my little foyer. I know the evolution of horror that I've described is not the sort of, shall we say, official evolution of horror. It's kind of my evolution of horror.
It's your kind of path,
when I was exposed to the different horror genres throughout. I mean, don't fact check people like, oh, but actually this movie came out before this movie. I mean, it's what I saw it in, and it's sort of what the kind of trends I was seeing at the time. But yeah, Brett, you want to tell us a bit about why we get scared?
Phone net good. So
help me, man. I need to get scared again.
So what makes horror so kind of applicable for me is as I said earlier, the psychological side. And I always found it so kind of interesting that horror is one of those genres where you either like it or you don't.
Yeah.
The people who are kind of
my wife
on the in between.
it.
Oh, really?
Oh, she can't stand it. She cries. She will leave the room if I put anything scary on.
See, that's super interesting. So I started delving a little bit deeper into why does it affect some people in certain ways. And it's actually very, very interesting when you kind of look into it. So what they kind of are talking about here is what's called the excitation transfer process. And what that means is when your body goes through some sort of fright or adrenaline rush or something your body isn't expecting, the blood in your body almost has to kind of displace itself to cater for those areas. As in adrenaline goes to your extremities and it's basically there to increase your heart rate, your blood pressure. Everything kind of just increases.
Like animal modes you can get out of a situation.
Yeah, it's almost like a natural effect on us. And that they're kind of almost calling it like a psychological arousal, which I think is a pretty good way to put it. Yeah. And it's directly related to, are you an adrenaline junkie or not?
Yeah.
If that is something that you enjoy, you'll be more likely to enjoy a horror.
Yeah.
It's got a lot to do with, and apparently it's more prevalent in men. More men statistically enjoy horrors.
Yeah.
And it all kind of boils down to when a guy watches a horror and he gets through it at the end, it's almost like an achievement. And it's your body's way of being like, you overcame that, you conquered that, good job.
I do find, maybe it's just me, but a lot of girls will say that they love a horror, but when it actually comes to watching it, you can see they just don't want to be there.
They don't want to be in there at all. And I think it plays off both things. I mean, it was always a thing in the back of the day. Like, if you take a girl out on a date, take her to a horror movie because she will be more attracted to you because you're showing that brave face.
Yes, for sure.
So for the girl, it's more like, okay, you're going to rescue
immediately
me.
turn to you for safety.
Exactly.
Kind of.
But they say if for instance a person is a lot more susceptible to temperature changes or a shirt that feels funny or a tag that feels funny and you're annoyed by it, statistically you will not prefer horrors because your body is more susceptible to indicators, be it visual, be it physical. And I found that so interesting.
That is odd. I'm definitely, I don't fall in that category then because I hate weird textures and stuff, dude. Like,
but are you like, do you get cold easily?
No.
Apparently it's got more to do with that. It's got more to do with your way your body deals with things.
All right. Okay.
I mean, the weird textures, everyone's got some weird.
Like the I guess it's maybe a South African word, but the chrills.
The chrills.
Or the heebie-jeebies, I suppose, from very physical stuff. Like, I hate it when, like, silk labels, or like, the label in the back of the shirt, if you rub the two parts of it together, oh my word, that drives me up the wall. Glue, like a Pritt stick, if you're printing, and the glue runs out and the plastic scrapes in the paper.
Oh, yes.
Can't.
So basically all they're saying is if you have that type of tendency, you are more... Okay, you have a more intense psychological reaction to horror films. So you will take it in more, and whether or not you're on the spectrum of adrenaline or not is how you will kind of be around react to it. So I don't know if it's true. I don't know if if you're at home, test that out.
Yeah.
Do you like horrors or not? Do you get cold easily? Maybe it's
an interesting correlation.
It is an interesting correlation, and it kind of just makes you think. So I think that is part cool. I mean, my girlfriend will watch horrors. She's got no problem with them, but I have to be there because it's the rush, but it's also the safety factor.
100%. I mean, this as well, like, also, which I find my wife does as well, but if they do watch it, it's never alone, whereas I love watching a horror alone. The more scary the atmosphere, the better. Yeah. But also, I can compartmentalize it. So I'll watch the movie. I'll be so absorbed into the movie. Okay, movie's finished. I'm now out of it. If it's really, really good, I'll think about it a while, how much I enjoyed it, but I'm not going to lie in bed at night and be freaked out about it. Whereas my wife will kind of like, she that night will have to cuddle super close. She can't do anything by herself. She doesn't want to
Yeah.
go into a room with
No,
the light
definitely
off.
not.
She doesn't leave the environment that she's just
Yeah.
been like absorbed in.
Yeah. But it's definitely that. It's that disconnect. And I mean, there's been so many cases where I've been watching a movie with her, and for instance, someone will do something and she'll physically get a fright. I mean, you're almost like, it's a physical reaction to it. And we joke around and kind of always say that she's the perfect audience.
Yeah.
Because she takes in
She reacts
everything.
exactly how they want you to react.
And I mean, it's like that with quite a few people. You take in so much of it that it doesn't affect you, but it makes you think about it more. Whereas I have
really makes you think.
Yeah, I have a disassociation to it. So if I see something on TV, I don't think about it that much. I will say though, I watched the trailer for 8, and there's a scene in the trailer where the main kind of guy, the protagonist, if you want to call him Lazarus, goes up to close the curtains and he sees that guy running across his yard. So now that freaked me the hell out, because where I live is identical to that. I'm on the top story. I close a window, or I close my curtains, and there's a light shining in the front over a picket fence.
Yeah.
With nothing. I live on a farm, and I've got nothing else there.
If the situation seems like this could happen, you know? It's way scarier.
It's way
and I
scarier.
agree. I often find like a lot of the sort of home invasion scary movies.
Yes.
A lot creepier than your monster attacking you.
I will say I think my worst thing to experience in a horror movie is somebody asleep and something happening to them. So your Paranormal Activity or your slasher films where someone's asleep and something happens, because it's your most vulnerable moment. And
the found footage movies we find a lot scarier because the medium it's presented in is again realistic.
Correct.
It's someone has found this. It's some dude with a camcorder following a situation. Like the Blair Witch.
Yes.
And there's another found footage one which did quite well. I can't remember what it is. But that and Paranormal Activity. I wouldn't say either of them are particularly great, but they are great, you know?
I preferred Paranormal Activity to Blair Witch Project.
Really? I was the other way around.
Really?
Yeah.
Hectic. Okay. I enjoyed Blair Witch Project, but I'm not a fan of found footage in the sense of Cloverfield. Annoyed the hell out of me because the found footage was too found footagey. The guy kept moving the camera so much. Paranormal Activity was stationary
Is that
cameras.
the one where they are in the city and they're trying to escape?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
because there's like 3 of those.
There's
in that
3.
scene. There's 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is I think the newest one.
Yeah, that's the new. So no, that's the
second one.
So it's Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is where they're in the back.
Yes.
And then it's the Cloverfield.
With John Goodman.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Cloverfield Paradox.
Okay.
Which I loved all 3. Okay, I loved the second 2.
What happened in Paradox again? I know I've seen it.
Paradox is basically the origin of the thing. They're in space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that was a cool one.
Yeah, that was great. I loved Cloverfield Paradox. So I used to read Goosebumps and I loved them. My parents hated the fact that I loved them because it always gave me nightmares, but I just loved the stories.
I remember the one, it came from beneath the sink. that one used to get me, dude.
Yeah.
The cover art with like the sponge with the face or whatever it was.
Oh man, I mean R.L. Stein, just the thoughts. I mean, when the TV series, when you watch it now, it's like, no, come on. But back in the day, it was pretty freaky.
Creepy, dude.
When I was younger, so we have basically a holiday cottage in the middle of nowhere in South Africa. It's so far away, we only got electricity like maybe 2 years ago type of thing. And I grew up there. I spent every kind of holiday we had there, and I used to read Goosebumps there. And at that point, we had no electricity, so when lights went out at the end of the day, it was dark.
There was
All you
no
had
turning
was
on lights anymore.
you had a gas lamp and a torch if you were lucky. And I used to sit and read Goosebumps by torch.
Yeah.
Now, what sucks about that is when you're in the middle of nowhere, there are a lot more kind of like bugs and creatures around.
A lot more sounds.
A lot more
You think it's
sounds.
quiet in the middle of nowhere. It's loud.
It's loud. You don't have other sounds to drown it out.
The silence is deafening, man.
Literally. And this one occasion, we actually weren't staying in our cottage because my uncle and aunt were there. And we moved into our neighbor's cottage.
Okay.
And sometime through the night, I was sent to go pick up something in basically what was like the kitchen that was separated from the building. So
Ruh-roh.
yeah, no, and you say ruh-roh, and it was a dude. So I go and basically walk into this place, into the kitchen, and when I get in there, there is a wild dog.
Whoa.
Wild dog paws up on the sink, busy eating food out of the sink.
Jeez.
This thing was
That must
massive.
have been so scary at the time.
I cannot explain to you how much that messed me up. So seeing this dog on the counter, basically paws on the floor. It was taller than me.
Yeah.
I freaked out. I ran out. I went and found my dad. My dad walked in. It was still there eating, and he kind of like, basically, I don't know how he got it away. He screamed or shouted or whatever, and it ran away. But it sticks with you. I mean, it's gonna be your reference forever.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, searching through kind of the science behind horror and kind of what makes people scared and what doesn't, and like bringing up childhood frights and how they've kind of affected us. It's funny to see how movies, and you spoke about Scream and you spoke about Friday the 13th and all that, those are more of your feature. They're films meant for everyone.
Yes.
Versus a movie like, let's say, The Ritual, where it's very specific and it follows a whole bunch of different laws. And I kind of feel like, so I was looking at it, it's actually quite funny because I found a couple sites that reference the rules of horror movies.
Yeah.
And those are the rules of movies which are more kind of popular in a way. The rules of never ask who's there.
Yeah.
If a house is haunted, move out. Do not stay there. Check your back seat before you get in the car.
Yeah.
Never say I'll be right back. Don't read any book you don't understand out loud.
Yeah.
And whatever you do, don't split up.
Yeah.
Like, it's those rules.
That split up one is so obvious.
It's so obvious.
I'm going to go this way. You're going to go this way. We'll get picked off one by one.
And it's those rules. We've gotten used to those rules.
Yeah.
And when we see them, we're like, well, he's dead. She's dead.
We
like,
all know.
You know it's going to happen.
It kind of makes it fun as well.
It does.
You're
it
like,
does.
well, I know it's going to happen, but let's see how it unfolds.
But you enjoy the movie for a different reason.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch the reboot of Friday the 13th, it's so classic.
Yeah.
And I must just list a few more because in those lists there were some hilarious rules. The one was, if your children speak to you in Latin or any other language which they should not speak, or if they speak to you using a voice which is not their own, shoot them immediately. As a general rule, don't solve puzzles that open portals to hell. Show skin, dead.
Yeah.
Have sex, dead. Saying I'll be right back, dead.
Using a Ouija board, dead.
Like, come on, man, stick to the rules. I mean, I enjoy those for those reasons. And I think you get movies which don't follow, like for instance, Annihilation. Annihilation for me never followed any sort of rule or guard. It was its own thing.
Yeah. Annihilation, I'd be hesitant to even put in the horror category. I think it is. It's like a sci-fi horror, but it's so different. There was, I think, only one time where I got super scared, which is when that thing that breathes.
That to me is what I kind of classified as a horror, because
I say the thing and everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, you just like, opens the mouth, you just hear the screams of his victims. Oh, that animal's victims.
Yeah. When I watched it with my girlfriend, she made me promise to tell her if it was a scary movie or not, and I said, "Listen, it is scary, but there's only one point that is scary." And she said, "When is it?" I said, "I'm not going to tell you, but it involves stairs."
You'll know.
Yeah. And the whole time, I shouldn't have said stairs because she's like, "Those are stairs." I'm like, "Not those stairs." But that, okay, fair enough. You maybe can't put it into the horror genre. It's more of a thriller in a way.
I don't even know. I don't have
it's
a
like
genre for it. It's sci-fi.
It's its own thing.
It's so... I was so mentally engrossed in it, especially at the end, where she sees that alien
the
form,
being,
and that baller soundtrack plays.
Yes.
So good. And I really like the imagery of when they walk into I think it's a gym or something, and there's the corpse like on the wall.
On the wall. Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful. Yeah.
But I love that thought idea. And what I do look for in movies is something that makes me think or something that's different.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it was no one's ever tackled basically morphing DNA into something else.
This is very unique. Yeah.
It was so unique where you have a crocodile with shark's teeth.
Yeah.
You have flowers that contain human DNA and basically build their roots and their branches into human structures.
It's very cool.
It's different. It makes you think, and it's almost like candy for your brain because it's like, whoa, that's cool.
So interesting.
And for the fact of that thing, its ability to mimic voices like a parrot would do.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah, so on the other spectrum, you look at, and also, don't know if you want to call it a horror, but Split. I don't know if you saw that.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, exactly.
Shamalama ding dong.
Yeah, that one. It was one of those movies where, okay, and straight away you know an M. Night movie and where it's going to go. I mean, I started my whole M. Night thing with The Village.
Is that him?
That's him, dude.
You know, I haven't watched that,
What?
I know. Here I am talking like I'm the master of horror movies.
No.
Haven't watched The Village.
Hawkins, you need to see this. So for me, The Village was one of my first M. Night movies.
Yeah.
He did Sixth Sense as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So Sixth Sense, not horror, more thriller. Village for me was the
Sixth
first
Sense did creep me out though, with the bear in the sort of carnival scene or whatever. If I'm remembering that correctly, it's been a while, but that was creepy.
Yeah, that's the thing. M. Night is very creepy, but he does have the element of horror in 90% of his. I mean, Split with the beast at the end, and Village with what happens at the end.
Guess I gotta watch it.
But what I love,
I thought Village was a bunch of hillbillies. No, Wrong Turn is the one of the hillbillies.
Yes, Wrong Turn is
That's
hillbillies.
what I'm thinking about.
I love Wrong Turn. Wrong Turn, Hills of Ours, the whole hillbilly genre.
It's creepy.
I loved it.
Oh, dude, Wicker plays a huge thing in the kind of genre of movies nowadays. I found like it's huge. The Ritual, Hereditary, Midsommar, kind of. It's all this Wicker stuff is definitely prevalent now.
It's because Wicker reminds us of an older kind of creepier time.
Yeah,
or it does to me.
No, for sure. I love it.
But
I love the genre.
It's great. It really, really is. I love movies that make you think.
Yeah.
Movies that freak me out even better. I will say, I wouldn't choose a gore horror over a supernatural horror.
100%.
I can't say I enjoy gore. I think it's overdone in a way.
I hate gore, but I love it if it's done effectively.
Correct.
Like, and so I'm not such a fan of the Saw series, to be honest. I like the premise of the escape room vibe.
Agreed. I love the premise, but the
gore is just too much, man.
Yeah. And that's what I didn't like about Hostel either. Yeah. What I liked about Hostel was it put your mind into the position of, okay, stranger in a foreign place, something can go wrong. And that whole, which kind of brings me back to almost like a 4chan type vibe of the guy picking up his phone and just bidding on a person. Like that over there, it freaks me out to my core because I know it does happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made, but they okay, maybe they took the gore to that extent because they wanted to show what was possible.
Yeah.
But it's not something that you enjoy watching.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's tough to watch.
It's tough to watch. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, no matter if you look at the science of horror, you look at the progression of horror through the years, from back in the day to where we are now, to the popular horror versus that kind of cult horror. It's all interesting and all plays in your mind in different ways, and it's all something that people can appreciate in different ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of subgenres within horror.
100%. Yeah.
You can't just say I'm not a fan of horror in general.
No.
You've got to be specific. I mean, you can... you're afraid of being scared, but not every horror is necessarily scary.
Exactly. Correct. So yeah, that's our take on horror and our reasoning for how we feel about it. Everyone's different. So good. But how does it affect you? How do you see horror? Do you like the fright?
Do you hate horror?
Yeah. Do you like the fright? Do you like the story? Let us know. It's an interesting topic to delve into, and we've just scratched the surface. So we will definitely delve into this again without a doubt. Maybe next ones will be a little bit more kind of honed into a specific topic. This one, I think we kind of just this was our chance to kind of let our minds run a bit wild with this and bring in a few things that we kind of prefer to think about in horror and put our thoughts forward. I mean, this podcast is a lot about you guys getting to know us, and I think that's what makes this great. I think so too. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. If you liked it, if you didn't, leave us a comment, let us know, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.